What if the very first thing you do each morning is quietly damaging your brain and your heart? I ask you that not to scare you, but because I've seen it happen to far too many men over 60. You rise from bed, you follow the same habit you've followed for years, without ever stopping to think about what it's doing to your body. And while it feels harmless, even normal, it sets off a chain reaction that can drain your energy, cloud your memory, and put extra strain on your heart before the day even begins. It's like pulling a car out of the garage with no oil in the engine. The engine still runs, it might even roar for a few minutes, but the wear and tear starts immediately, silently, every single day. That's how most men begin their mornings, without realizing it. The mistake hides in plain sight. And because you've done it for decades, you assume it's just part of getting older, when really it's your body sending out a warning. But here's the good news, the solution is simple. Today, I'm going to show you what not to do first thing in the morning, and the one easy change that can protect your brain, steady your heart, and bring your mornings back to life after 60. My name is Dr. Katherine Rocker, and for more than 30 years, I've had the privilege of working with men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. I'm a neurologist by training, but more importantly, I've been a witness to the struggles men face as the years add up. In my office, I've heard the same story again and again. Doc, I wake up, I do what I've always done, but somehow I feel worse. I'm more tired, more foggy, less steady. Is this just aging? And my answer is always the same, aging is natural, but decline is not inevitable. Many of the changes you're feeling aren't because of age itself, but because of the small habits that quietly shape your mornings. I'm not here to lecture you. You don't need another lecture. You've lived long enough, and you've heard enough rules and restrictions. What you need is clarity. What you need is someone who can stand beside you, as a guide, a friend, and say, this is the one thing to avoid, and here's the simple step to replace it with. Because here's the truth, the way you start your morning sets the rhythm for the rest of your day. And if you're over 60, those first choices are more powerful than ever. So let me show you what that one silent mistake really is, and why it quietly steals your strength. Let me tell you about John, a 68-year-old from Ohio. Every morning, his routine was simple. Wake up, shuffle to the kitchen, pour a hot cup of black coffee, and drink it down before anything else touched his lips. He'd done it for decades. He told me, Doc, it's the only way I can wake up. But here's what John also told me, some mornings, when he stood up too quickly, the room would spin. His heart would race, his hands would tremble, and his thoughts felt slower than they used to be. At first, he blamed age. But what he didn't realize was that his first thing in the morning habit was backfiring. You see, after 7 to 8 hours of sleep, your body is in a natural fasting state. Blood sugar is lower, blood pressure is lower, and your brain, the hungriest organ in your body, is desperate for steady, gentle fuel. Instead of feeding it, John was shocking it. Coffee on an empty stomach doesn't give your brain energy, it gives your stress hormones a surge. Cortisol shoots up. Blood vessels tighten. Your heart beats faster, while your neurons are still gasping for fuel. It's like slamming on the gas pedal of a car when the tank is nearly empty. For a moment, it feels powerful. But deep inside, you're burning the engine. And this isn't just about John. It's the same pattern I see in men all across America. They think they're doing something normal, even healthy, by reaching for coffee first thing. But what feels like a boost is actually a drain, stealing clarity, energy, and stability before the day even begins. Here's the bottom line, your brain hates this kind of start. And unless you change it, the silent damage builds up over time. So let me explain exactly why this happens, and what your brain is really asking for instead. Here's what most men don't realize. After you wake up, your body is in its most vulnerable state of the entire day. Think about it. You've gone 7, maybe 8 hours without water, without food, without movement. During that time, your brain has been burning through its energy stores, even while you slept. Your neurons, the tiny messengers that control memory, focus, and mood, are like thirsty runners crossing the finish line. They need gentle, steady fuel to recover. But instead of giving them that, most men hand their brain gasoline. Coffee on an empty stomach doesn't nourish. It jolts. It spikes cortisol, the stress hormone. It tightens blood vessels and makes your heart race before it's ready. And because there's no food in your system, your blood sugar can drop even lower, leaving your neurons starved. Here's a number that shocks many of my patients. Just a 1% drop in glucose, something as small as skipping a few bites in the morning, can cut your brain's ability to focus by up to 10%. Imagine starting every single day with your brain running at 90% or worse. That's what happens when you wake up and reach only for coffee. Men tell me all the time, "But doc, it makes me feel awake." And yes, for a moment it does, because your heart is pounding, your cortisol is spiking, and your body is running on borrowed energy. But underneath that false wakefulness, your neurons are running on empty. And over weeks, months, and years, that pattern accelerates the very things you fear most: fatigue, brain fog, memory loss, and strain on your heart. Your brain doesn't hate mornings, it hates being ignored. It wakes up asking for a spark of fuel, a foundation to carry you into the day. And when you skip that step, or replace it with a stimulant, you rob yourself of the clarity and steadiness that could be yours. The good news? Your brain isn't asking for much. And the right start is far simpler than most men expect. So if coffee on an empty stomach sets you up for a crash, what should you do instead? The answer is simple, and it doesn't require complicated diets or fancy supplements. Your brain and heart are just asking for 3 things within that first half hour: hydration, steady fuel, and balance. Step 1. Water. After a night without fluids, your body is mildly dehydrated. A glass of water first thing is like oil for the engine, it allows everything else to run smoothly. Step 2. Light fuel. Your brain doesn't need a heavy plate of bacon and eggs. In fact, starting too heavy can slow you down. What it needs is something gentle but steady, so your blood sugar rises smoothly and your neurons get the signal: we're safe. We can focus now. Here are 3 examples that I've seen work wonders for men over 60. A small bowl of oatmeal with a handful of blueberries. The oats give you long-lasting energy, while the berries protect your brain cells with antioxidants. A banana with a spoonful of peanut butter. Quick natural sugars from the fruit, balanced by healthy fats and protein, give your brain a smooth, steady lift. A serving of Greek yogurt topped with walnuts. That combination feeds both your neurons and your gut, which is deeply linked to brain health and mood. Notice what these have in common: they're light, quick, and balanced. They don't leave you sluggish, they don't spike your blood sugar, and they don't take more than a few minutes to prepare. And here's the key: timing matters. Eat them within 30 minutes of waking. That's the golden window when your brain and heart are most open to receiving fuel. Miss that window, and your body shifts into stress mode. Honor it, and you give yourself a foundation of clarity and energy for the rest of the day. This one small change, water first, light fuel second, has transformed mornings for so many of my patients. And when you see how quickly it works, you'll understand why I call it small but powerful. But don't just take my word for it. Let me tell you about one man who made this shift, and how his mornings and his life completely changed. Let me introduce you to Walter, a 72-year-old from Florida. When Walter first came to see me, he was convinced his best mornings were behind him. He told me, "Doc, I get up, I drink my coffee, and within an hour I feel like I'm dragging a weight behind me. I forget what I walked into a room for. I don't have the energy I used to. I guess this is just what happens in your 70s." But when I looked closer, I realized Walter wasn't broken, he was just starting his day on empty. Every morning, he skipped fuel, relying only on coffee, and his body was quietly paying the price. So I asked him to try something different. Nothing extreme, nothing complicated. Just this. When you woke up, drink a glass of water, then eat something small, oatmeal with berries, or a banana with peanut butter, or even just yogurt with a few walnuts. All within 30 minutes of waking. 2 weeks later, Walter sat in my office with a smile I hadn't seen before. "Doc," he said, "I didn't think it would matter. But I feel sharper. I don't get that heavy fog anymore. I remember what I'm supposed to do. I even beat my grandson at chess last weekend, and he's been winning for years." Walter's family noticed too. His wife told me she felt like she had her husband back. His mornings weren't a battle anymore, they were a beginning. That's the power of a simple change. Walter didn't need a new medication. He didn't need to give up the things he loved. He just needed to stop making that one silent mistake, and start fueling his brain at the moment it needed him most. And here's what I want you to know, Walter is not unique. He's proof. Proof that at 60, 70, even 80, your mornings can still be renewed. Proof that you are never too old to change the rhythm of your day. Walter's story is inspiring, but here's what I want you to remember, he is not alone. There are thousands, even millions, of men over 60 who wake up every morning making the same silent mistake. Coffee first. No fuel. And they live with the fog, the fatigue, the shakiness, thinking, well, this is just what happens as you age, but it's not just age. It's habit. And habits can be changed. I've watched men in their 60s, 70s, and 80s discover this simple shift, and when they do, something powerful happens. They start talking about it. One man tells his friend at church, "I started eating within 30 minutes of waking, and I feel sharper." Another shares it with his golf buddy. "I'm not dragging through the morning anymore." That ripple spreads. That's the beauty of community. When you share your story, you're not just helping yourself, you're showing another man that he doesn't have to accept decline as his destiny. You're giving him permission to try, and hope that it's not too late. So here's my invitation, tomorrow morning, give your brain what it needs. Drink the water. Take those first bites. And then pay attention, notice the difference. Then, tell someone. Share it with your family, your friends, or even right here in the comments. Because no man should fight this battle alone. And when we break the cycle together, mornings stop being a burden. They become a chance to renew, to sharpen, to reclaim the best years still ahead. So let's bring this home. The first thing you do in the morning matters more than most men realize. For decades, you may have started with the same routine, coffee first, food later, or nothing at all. It feels harmless, even normal. But over time, it quietly steals your clarity, your energy, and your strength. The truth is, your brain and heart are not asking for much. Just a glass of water. Just a few bites of steady fuel. Oats with berries. Yogurt with walnuts. A banana with peanut butter. Simple choices, yet powerful enough to change the course of your entire day. Here's what I want you to remember. You are not broken, and you are not too old to change. Renewal is still possible. I've seen it in Walter at 72, in John at 68, in countless men who thought their mornings were gone for good. They weren't. They just needed a better start. So tomorrow, when you open your eyes, make a different choice. Don't fall into the silent mistake. Instead, give your brain the spark it's been waiting for. Feel the clarity, the steadiness, the energy return, and know that this is only the beginning. And when you do, share it. Tell a friend, a brother, a fellow man over 60. Because your story may be the very thing that helps him reclaim his mornings too. Life after 60 is not the end of sharpness, energy, or joy. It's the beginning of a new chapter. And it starts, right here, right now, with how you choose to live the very first moments of your morning.